In the previous mini video, I showed you how to take a server that had just been set up in Proxmox and install the tools for DHCP server management, DNS server management, and Active Directory tools for managing Active Directory. I actually had not installed DNS tools, and so I had to go back and install that later. I looked at the video, I'd clicked on it, and the click didn't take, so that's what happened there. I had forgotten to show you how to install the group policy editor, GPMC, Group Policy Management Console. There are two ways you can do that. For those of you who like to script things, I just want to show you that PowerShell can install features on servers. So you can, see, I don't have it in my history, do I? Oh, there we go. Better than typing it. You can simply say add Windows feature -name GPMC, and I'll show you that it starts, and then I'll hit Control-C to get out of it, but you can see it's going and downloading the thing right now. Here we go. I'll back out of that. The way we're doing most of our installs, since we're just learning, is to use Server Manager, which gives us one nice uniform interface for doing this. I'll say I want to add roles and features, and I'll click through. It's a role-based or feature-based installation. I want it on my own server. I'm not installing a server function. I'm installing a tool or a feature. So I'll come down here, and the one I missed, I just forgot about this, is Group Policy Management right there. And they say this is an MMC snap-in. It just means that there's this console that Microsoft reuses for a lot of their server management tools. They look, if a lot of them look alike, it's because it's the same framework. It's the same solution that they've come up with. This one tool that you can load a lot of snap-ins into. Start my local one and my remote one. Here we go. In fact, let me show you that really quickly, just so you know what we're talking about. This is the Microsoft Management Console. And when it talks about adding snap-ins for this thing, when it loads, if you just run it directly, there's nothing here at all. But if you look at File menu and choose Add and Remove Snap-in, you can see that all of these tools, Active Directory, Certificate Management, DHCP, DNS, and all of these other tools are all MMC snap-ins. So if you wanted to, I'm not saying you should do this, but you could actually build a single MMC console that has Active Directory users and computers. You could have your DHCP management, your DNS management. Trying to think of others that we might care about. That's plenty for making the point. And you could put those into one MMC console. And I wonder if I can just say, I think I can just give the domain name here of school14.test. If it finds that, it does, because that's the name it resolves to. For DHCP, I should be able to do something similar, add a server, and it's found one for me because I got my address. Oh, because this one's in the domain. Looks like it's given it a go. There we go. And for Active Directory, it's probably, yeah, it's already connected to the Active Directory domain that I'm a part of. So you can see that I can have as many of these snap-ins loaded into MMC as I care to. And depending on what your job is, you might want an MMC that's got all the tools that you work with, loaded into one console. I don't work this way. I load them separately. But that's the idea with MMC. It's one interface that you can load several different snap-in tools that Microsoft and other companies have written. You can load them into MMC. So I'm not going to save this. So when it says that group policy management is an MMC snap-in, they just mean that it's going to be something that can be loaded into that MMC interface. We'll go back to clicking next here and tell it to install. I don't think this one will take long at all. Could be wrong. I didn't think a snap-in would take too long, but having never authored one, I don't know what goes into it. There we go. That did take a little while. The remote. I think you've seen me start GPMC by actually typing in gpmc.msc. It doesn't show up until you type the whole thing. But now you know that if you care to, you can just type mmc.exe, which also shows up after you've typed the whole thing. But you can open that up. And to see the group policy manager, you can come in here and let's see. I didn't pay attention to which one's which here. Let's pull this over. Group Policy Management Editor is probably the one we want. Oh, is this for bin controllers, student? Oh, so this is asking to edit a specific object. That's not what we want. Policy object. Oh, it's probably just this one, and I overthought it. It's the group policy management snap-in. So we'll open this one up. We've got our forest, which has a single domain in it, school14.test. And inside of there, we should see our organizational units that we know from Active Directory users and computers. And for example, we've got our student VMs. I do have one. Oops. I do have one group policy in here that matters to us. And once you've joined our domain, we do still have this rogue DHCP server handing out IP addresses, and Iowa State probably set that up to be useful to us, and it's very nice, but it doesn't play well with what we're trying to do for Active Directory. So once you're in the domain, I've got a policy that blocks this, and I think if we go and look at our settings, which is going to tell us that we're violating, I'll show you in a bit how to shut that off. We're violating Internet Explorer safe mode. But if we look at this, this is a computer configuration item. Hang on, that's okay. It's a computer configuration item. We're blocking it for the computer, not just the user. And so it has to do with, for those of you who know, this has to do with firewalls. It's a rule that says if I get anything from anywhere in this 10.0.0.0 range, or any place in 10 dot, actually, it can be 10 dot followed by anything. And it's on, well, I thought I configured this down to a port. I might have told it I just kind of looks, oh, there it is, port 68. And that is their port 68. I'm going to ignore that. I'm not sure what protocol 17 is. I should know that, but I don't. But this rule, at any rate, will result in us not listening to or not hearing this DHCP server. So it means basically that we won't fall out of our domain because we got, let me back up. If we do get an address from this DHCP server, it'll be in this 10 dot network, and our network is 172.44.90, I believe. I'm sorry, 144. I was, yeah, some of you know why I said that. It's 144.76.90. And that's the one we have to be in to talk to our Active Directory. So this is an actual functional policy for us that makes sure we stay in the domain. But once you have Group Policy Editor set up, what I'd like to show you how to do is to apply some policies to your own server and to your own user. Remember, I'm logged in. I hope I remembered to log in. Yeah, as my admin user. So I'm not logged in as the domain admin or anything like that. I'm just logged in on my own server, Yielden. So I'm not on the domain controller. And I'm logged in as Chris admin. I'm not logged in as administrator as I have been during our classes. And I want to show you how you can create group policy from your own server. And you could do this from your own Windows 10 or Windows 11 computer. You just have to look up how to install these same tools on Windows 10 or Windows 11. They actually have different techniques for installation depending on which operating system you're using. So I feel really badly that you didn't get hands-on experience with this the last couple of weeks because of the problems we had, and there were a series of small mistakes I made in class. I was really excited for you guys to get to do this, and we just didn't get anywhere at all. So that's why I'm making this series of little videos this week, and I hope you have time to take a look before we get going on this next on the international competition this Saturday. So what I'm going to show you how to do are a couple pretty simple policies. One will be a user policy, and one will be a computer policy. And the user policy I'm going to show right now will be one to control the wallpaper that displays on the user's desktop. I might also just temporarily throw in the one that hides all the settings stuff. We tried to do this in class, and within about 10 minutes of when you guys left, I saw what the problem was. Somehow I just was distracted while you guys were there, and I apologize for that. So we'll do that. And I can't remember. I might have to take a short break from the video to go back and look and see what computer policy it is that we'll take as a demo. So first thing I want to do is open up Active Directory users and computers. And the reason we want to do this is I want to show you how we can do this and not get in each other's way. I see that I have advanced features turned on, so I'm going to turn that off. This is probably how yours looks. You probably don't have advanced features on, and we don't need it on. So right now, all of our computers are in this organizational unit called Student VMs. And all of our accounts are in this organizational unit called Student Accounts. And if we attach policies to these organizational units, it will affect everyone else's VMs and everyone else's account. And we don't want to do that. So I think the way we should do this is as follows. When you're doing this lab, do the same thing I'm doing, but use your own name. I'm going to go ahead and create a new organizational unit. And that's down here, organizational unit. And I'm going to give it a similar name, right? I'm going to call it Student Accounts. Oops. But then I'm going to put Chris at the end of it, -Chris. Protect it from accidental deletion. That's good. That just means you have to go in the properties and clear this property that says protect from accidental deletion before you delete it. from accidental deletion before you delete it. So that will be where I put my student account. And then I'm going to create another organizational unit. And this one I'm going to call student VMs, but put my name at the end of it again. And I'm going to put my virtual machine in this one. So this will just be a scaled back way for us to look at this. And we can imagine, right, that that we're working with our normal accounts and VMs, organizational units, but it will only be this restricted set. I think there might be some computers up here. Yeah, my bad. That I hadn't moved down to the student VMs account yet. Let me do that. And I think we're probably caught up with the users. Let's take a peek. Only 2 actual users, administrator and guest, and that's fine. So I'm going to take my VM, my non-administrative VM. So by that I mean not the domain controller. And that one's called Yielden. And I'm going to move that into student VMs Chris. And then when you do this, what you'll do is create, suppose it's Oxel. He'd create student accounts Oxel and student VMs Oxel. And then he would come in, I think his VM is the Alternet comp, and he would grab that one and put it into student VMs Oxel. And then for his student accounts Oxel, he would go and grab, out of student accounts, he would go and grab just his normal Oxel account. So we want to grab our normal student account, if this makes sense. I feel like I'm talking in circles a little bit. We want to move that into our special student accounts organizational unit that we're creating. We don't want to move our admin account because that's our domain admin, right? So we want to leave the domain admin alone. And maybe I should just show you what it is that we're getting at. This is the end state. In the end state, you should have 2 new VMs, one called student accounts with your name at the end, that should have your normal user in it, because we're going to make policies that affect this user. And the other one should be called student VMs with your name at the end that should have your server in it, because we're going to make policies that affect this server. And then leave everything else alone in these other organizational units, and leave all the other accounts alone, because we don't want to mess with anybody else's stuff. So hopefully that makes sense. But now that we have these 2 organizational units, we can go back into Group Policy Editor and we can write policies that will affect these 2 organizational units. So let's go back over to Group Policy Editor. And we're going to have to refresh this, because when we opened this up, those new organizational units didn't exist yet. So hopefully, I right click and there's a refresh choice. We'll do that, and we can see now student accounts Chris and student VMs Chris show up here. So I'm going to choose student accounts Chris. So I'm going to choose student accounts Chris. And I'm going to right click on this and say that I want to make a new GPO, and I want to link it to this student accounts Chris OU. And I'm going to say OU because saying organizational units repeatedly is a mouthful. So this one I'm going to call mandatory wallpaper. And there's no, I don't think we have any starter GPOs, so that there is none. And this will pop up here, and there's nothing going on with it. No policies or anything like that. So we have to right click and go edit this policy. And this will pop up this interface we've seen several times. And to get to the wallpaper setting, remember this is a user configuration that we're after. And to know if it's user or machine, configuration, you kind of just have to ask or look it up. And eventually you learn some of them, which one is where, but it's always good to just check. So for this one, I believe it's a user config and it's a administrative policy. And I think it's just under desktop. Yeah. And this one is called desktop wallpaper over here. So if I double click on this to bring it up in its full editor, I can enable this policy, which means I'm going to choose the desktop wallpaper for anybody to whom this policy applies. And I can specify it. You can see down here as a local Windows, or I'm sorry, as a local file system path, or as a remote file system path. Now, this UNC, Universal Naming Convention, I can't remember what UNC stands for, but this UNC path has the syntax whack server name, whack share name, whack, and then a normal path after that. And pull up Explorer. You may remember that we set up some shares, or at least one share, on the domain controller, which is called Zubin Janubi. I think I spelled it right. There we go. So we set up this class share, right? And inside the read-only folder, I have put a wallpaper folder that has a wallpaper.jpg. And so if I copy this and pop it into here, this is that UNC style. It's whack Zubin Janubi, and then / class share, which is the share name we set up a couple weeks ago, / read only, / wallpaper, but I have to add the file name, / wallpaper.jpg. And when you do this, you should set up, your own your own group policy, because you'll set up your own OU that'll be called student accounts - your name, and then you'll set a policy on that OU with your account in it. And when you do this, you don't have to use this one. You could go ahead and upload whatever picture you want into one of these locations. You'd have to fiddle around, I guess, to get it into the read-only share. I was on the domain controller when I did that. But you could get this in here. But there's, we have this editable share. So you could put a wallpaper in here. Maybe some people have been using folders with their names, so that'll work. You put your own folder in here, or you could put something in here with whatever name, and then it would be Zubin Janubi / it'd be 2 backslashes, and then Zubin Janubi / class share / editable / and then whatever you call it. Now, alternatively, go back to the editor, you could use a local file name like C:\, wherever it is, and just do it that way. The difference here is that if you use one of these UNC style names, this is a network aware name. And so it starts with a server. And so everybody will go to the same location on the network to get this file. So I can put this on Zubin Janubi and everybody will get it there. If you put a local file name like this, you're going to have to know that file exists locally on everybody's computer. But since you're only setting this up for your user and they're only going to be on that one computer, you could do that, for testing here. That's fine. But I'm going to specify a file that's up on the server just to show you that works. I hope that makes sense. You can always ping in Zulip if something doesn't make sense, right? So I'm going to enable this, and I've set the file name. Let me make sure, just to double check that I have the file name at the end. wallpaper.jpg. Say OK. And that will be my first little policy, right? And so, oh, I closed out the whole editor, didn't I? Oh yeah, I also said that that we'd go ahead and did I leave the editor open? I did not. That's console one. Okay. I also said that we could go ahead and do the much more dramatic one where group policy management console, sorry, where we shut off all the settings for the user. So let's go ahead and do that, since that's also a user policy. So I'll get back in here. Sorry, I closed that already. I should have left it open. And this will also be a user policy. So I'll look at student VMs, risks, and I'm leaving these as separate policies. I'm sorry, this should be student accounts, Chris. There we go. I'm making these separate policies so that the granularity is small. I can enable these and disable them in order to turn individual features on and off. And I think that's the right way to do this. So I'm going to create another GPO. And this one I'm going to call no settings, basically, is because that's what we're going to do. And I'll say, OK, and we need to edit this one just like we did the other one. They'll bring up the editor. And this one, if I can recall, is also a policy. It's in the control panel as an administrative template. It's the settings page visibility, I believe. If it's not, I will go look for it. Now, this is the list of settings. I'd specified. One moment while I'm going to go check this someplace else, and I will be right back. My apologies, this was right in front of me, and I just didn't see it. The one we're after is prohibit access to control panel and PC settings. I just skipped over it when I was looking. So this one does exactly what it says. It disables control panel, and it disables, if not all, disables a lot of the settings applications. So I'm going to enable this one. Go ahead and save it that way. And now we have two policies in our, sorry, there we go. We have two policies in our, I'm sorry, two policies bound to my student accounts OU, student accounts Chris, two different policies. One is mandatory wallpaper, and if we look at its details, we'll be able to see, I'm sorry, if we look at its settings, we'll be able to see that it has desktop wallpaper turned on, and then it shows you where it's getting the wallpaper from. And if we look at the one for no settings, in it's called, I should have called it like something else because now it's confusing. If I look at no settings and we look at the settings for that policy, you can see that prohibit access to control panel and PC settings is on, and you can see that it's a user configuration. Now it's Chris, OU. I'm going to exit group policy management, and in Active Directory users and computers, the student accounts Chris OU has the Chris account in it. So let's give that a shot and see how we do with our policies here. Just log off. Hit other users so I can log in as the normal Chris account, notice that it's automatically assuming that I want to be part of the School 14 domain. That means I can just type in Chris and it will use my domain account automatically. If you don't see that on the login screen, or you're just not sure, you can always preface your account name with with School 14 and a backslash. And that's one of the ways that you can tell Microsoft, or tell Windows rather, that you want to use a specific domain, is by putting the domain name. And for those of you who care, it's the NetBIOS version of the domain name in this case. You can put that in front of a backslash and then put your account name after that. So let me get this password in there again. All right. Oh, I didn't refresh policy. Oh, there we go. We got the wallpaper. This was a wallpaper at Microsoft where somebody was maybe fed up with people complaining about little things and all that. And he was like, we're Microsoft, we're supposed to make big changes. And so he drew the blue monster. And then the other change we made was to severely limit what would be available for settings. So we can see the settings button is still available. And if I click that, what happens? It just goes away. I don't know if there's a way to hide the settings button or not. There might be. If I go and actually try to run, there's another way to get into some settings, which some of you might know about, called Control Panel. And it says this operation's been canceled due to restrictions in effect on this computer. Please contact, and in this case, we are the system administrator and we've just locked out our other account, right? So we can see that this policy change took effect quite completely and right away. And I mentioned, I want to go back to this. I said, oh, we didn't refresh the policy. But for a user policy gets applied, I'm pretty sure, every time somebody logs in. So we didn't have to apply this one. Windows did it for us. But when we apply a computer policy, those get applied on a schedule. So when we demo how to do that, we will manually apply the policy. We'll force it to apply, because otherwise we'd have to wait on the scheduled refresh, and that would make a very long video. So this is just a demo on how to change a couple settings using user-based or account-based group policy. And I hope that makes sense. If you have time to look at this after you read the international competition scenario, which is our higher priority this week, let me know if you have questions or if anything doesn't work for you. That's all, and I'll see you in a bit with the third and final video for the week.